that everyone has to say during this panel. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Maria, for those introductory remarks. I am now going to ask everyone to participate in a quick icebreaker. Zaina?
Hi everyone, my name is Anab and I'm also a member of CCRB's Youth Advisory Council. I joined the CCRB Youth Advisory Council because I want to give a voice to young people's experience in the policing system and improve the criminal justice system as a whole. We ask everyone to participate in our icebreaker where everyone can share which country they are in by dropping a pin on a map. We have put the link to the map in the chat. Once the page is open, please click the large purple plus button and type in to submit where in the world you currently are located. You have a total of 2 minutes to do so.
And again, the link is in the chat if you'd like to participate in this activity. All right, we have about 30 seconds left for this activity.
Yeah, I got it.
All right. So we'll end this activity. Now, this is amazing. We are joined by people in Nigeria, in Spain, in Tunisia, in the UK, so many places. And in Mexico, we have people, and we have a ton of people in New York City. So yeah, thank you so much all for participating in that activity. Now, we're going to, before we introduce our first panel discussion, we're going to have everyone do one more activity, and Zainab will explain that activity.
Hi. Okay, so the next activity is going to be a word cloud. The activity will appear on the right-hand side of everyone's screen here on WebEx. If you're joining us on an iPhone or Android device, click the three dots on the bottom right-hand side of the WebEx screen and select the Slido app. We will provide 3 prompts, and for each prompt, you can submit a single word response. The first prompt is, what word would you use to describe how you feel about the future of policing? You have a minute to pick your word. Okay. The next prompt is, what word would you use to describe the police community relationships in your city/town?
The word cloud is now available.
And the last prompt is, what word or phrase comes to mind when you think of police accountability?
Amazing. We can close the voting now and just take a look at the results for these. Wow, these are some really interesting, really great responses. Thank you all so much for participating in this in these activities. So now we're going to and also so now we're going to pass this to Anissa to introduce our first panel.
Hello, my name is Lisa and I'm a member of the YC. I joined the YC because I want to give voice to my community and give my community a voice. I'm excited to introduce the amazing panelists we have here who will discuss what they think are the biggest issues facing police reform and police relations today. They are from the following organizations: Long-Term Forest Youth Independent Advisory Group, Young Women Action, and Youth Community Development Network, and the Youth Council of Oaxaca. Now, before we begin, I would like to share some ideas. Listen respectfully, without interrupting, keep an open mind, respect each other's opinions, avoid assumptions or generalizations, listen to and respect other points of views, and most importantly, criticize ideas, not individuals. Now that we all know the community rules, I would like to call the representative from Walton Forest Youth Independent Advisory Group to introduce themselves first.
Hi, hello, nice to meet you all. First off, my name's Elijah. I'm a part of the YGA. We are based in London, Waltham Forest to be specific. We tackle issues such as stop and search through the youth. We employ people between the ages of 13 and 25. Most of our people back here that we work with have hands-on experience with the police, so we get a better idea of how to actually combat issues in our borough. And just great to be here in the moment.
Amazing.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm loving all of this organization stuff. Okay. I will now call on the rep from Young Women in Action to introduce themselves. Um, okay, I will now call on the rep from the Newport Community Developers Network to introduce.
Can we have Karen Castro?
Hola, mi nombre es Karen Castro, soy abogada feminista y filántropa en México y en México no es novedad que la población no cuenta desgraciadamente con creencia en la policía. Cerca del 51% de la población mayor de edad no siente una confianza con el sistema policial debido a que existe mucha desconfianza a los altos índices de corrupción, impunidad, violencia y brutalidad policial que existen en México. Ser activista en México y ser activista joven y ser mujer, desgraciadamente, es correr peligro para el Estado mexicano. Y estoy muy contenta de poder estar aquí el día de hoy y nada, gracias por invitarme.
Hi, so thank you so much, Karen. We'll be translating some of what Karen said. Karen is a lawyer joining us from Mexico. What she was saying is that the population unfortunately does not have a belief in the police. About 51% of the adult population does not feel trust in the police system because there's a lot of distrust in the high rates of corruption, impunity, violence, and police brutality that exists in Mexico. And for her to be an activist in Mexico and to be a young activist and to be a woman, unfortunately, it runs a danger for the Mexican, to be there in the Mexican state. She's very happy to be here today and thanking you all for inviting her.
We now have a Greater Nigeria Initiative.
Hello, everyone, and good evening from Nigeria. My name is Chinedu Isaba, and I'm a lawyer, and I'm also the executive director of the Greater Nigeria Initiative, and we work on issues around extrajudicial killings, police brutality, human rights advocacy, and all of what we do is centered around restoring the dignity of the human person. So I'm very excited to be here with very intelligent young people, and I hope to learn a lot from everyone. Thank you very much.
All right, Anissa, if you can introduce our next panelist.
Okay, sorry for the difficulties. Okay, I would like to now introduce the Newport Community Developers.
KL, if you can introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Kayla Randall. I am a youth representative from yours, Youth Opportunities Underlining Solutions. We are focused in helping struggling citizens in New York, specifically in the Bronx borough, who have dealt with police brutality, loss of homes, etc. I hope to have a wonderful discussion with you all.
All right, thank you all for introducing yourselves. While Anissa fixes her audio, I'm just going to begin asking some of our panel questions. I'd like to pose the first question to Elijah. How would you describe the relationship between the police and your local community?
in Waltham Forest in specific, I'd say from firsthand and from people I know, I'd describe it as tense because most people don't really have trust with the police from past experience is with like brutality or just not really being recognized by police, or even in terms of they had an issue, it not being solved as fast enough or them getting like the adequate repercussions. So I'd say it's not at the best it could be at the moment.
Okay. Would anyone else like to share out? Okay, so on to-
KL, if you wanted to share.
Yes. So I would like to add on like I completely agree. While there are police officers who do try their best to keep our community safe, our relationship with the police is very complicated and very complex because it essentially there have been several instances of tension and mistrust between the community members and the police.
Thanks for sharing. Would anyone else like to speak? The floor is all yours. Okay, so on to the next question. What do you think the role of the police should be in your community or country?
Y Karen, lo que Anissa estaba preguntando es, ¿cuál crees que debería ser la relación de la policía en tu comunidad o país?
Muchas gracias. También voy a contestar la pregunta anterior, y es que en México, desgraciadamente, no existe una confianza ya hacia los elementos de policía porque suele haber mucha corrupción, impunidad. Cuando llegan a hacer algún tipo de cuestión de arresto, hay mucha violencia y brutalidad policial, y también se debe a la falta de capacitación. ¿Qué quiere decir eso? Que si bien hemos detectado durante muchos años que existe esta brutalidad en el manejo de la fuerza policial, tampoco se ha querido reconocer por parte del Estado mexicano que es necesario que tengan capacitaciones, y no solamente en temas de brutalidad policial, sino también para manejar los índices de violencia familiar, también para manejar a grupos prioritarios como lo son los grupos LGTBQI+, y este tipo de cuestiones. Y a base de que existe esta impunidad, también vemos una ineficiencia en la resolución de los crímenes. Y respondiendo a la segunda pregunta, ¿cuál crees?
Espera un momentico para... Karen wanted to respond to the first question. She said that in Mexico, unfortunately, there's no trust in the police because there's usually a lot of corruption. And when it comes to these types of issues, there's a lot of violence and police brutality, and it's due to a lack of training. So what this means is although that they've detected for many years that this brutality exists in the management of the police force, the Mexican state does not want to recognize what is necessary for them to do to really impose that training, and not only the issues of police brutality, but also to manage the rates of violence. She also mentioned that also to handle some of the groups that have more priority in regards to facing a lot of these issues, including LGBTQ groups, where these types of issues are based on the fact that there isn't much unity, and to also see the inefficiency to resolve some of the crimes and answering some of these questions and concerns.
Y la segunda pregunta, ¿cuál crees que debería ser el papel de la policía en mi comunidad? Pues el papel ideal fuera que primeramente se centraran en el papel de proteger a la ciudadanía y de servir a los ciudadanos, ¿no? Muchas veces se llegan a ver a la ciudadanía como ciudadanos de segunda, cuando pues debería tener este papel muy claro los agentes de policía, que son pues precisamente, ¿no? Trabajadores del pueblo y trabajadores de la ciudadanía, y que existiera un mayor respeto por los derechos humanos, y que al contrario de ver como una cuestión que ocultar, trabajar en estas deficiencias que existe dentro de la corporación, para así no solamente ayudar a la corporación, sino también ayudar a prevenir el delito, porque se va a promover en la ciudadanía la confianza de denunciar, porque sabemos que no existe la corrupción, y que nos van a ayudar precisamente a obtener justicia. Muchas gracias.
A lot there. So in regards to the second question, what do you think the role of the police is in the community? The ideal role would be that they would first focus on the role of protecting citizens and serving citizens. And many times we don't see that. In the city, some of the citizens are treated as second-class citizens when they shouldn't be. The police, people are precisely they're not working for the people and for the citizens, and that there should be a greater respect for human rights. But you know, there's a question of hiding that, and to work on these kind of deficiencies that exist within this entity and organization. We would really need to start helping with one component of it is to prevent crime, because it would promote trust among citizens to even report the crime to the police, because a lot of the citizens that distrust is broken because the citizens believe that there's a lot of corruption in the force, and that would be a way of really maintaining trust and justice. Thank you very much.
I want to take a moment to welcome one of our other panelists from Exodus Transitional Services. If you want to say hello.
Hello?
Oh, you're still muted. No, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. It's still muted, yeah. Okay, if anything, we can, yeah. Oh, it should be, yeah, if, okay.
There she goes.
Oh, we still, yeah, Kashmir, we still cannot hear you, but, we can, yeah, we can't, we're unable to hear you right now, but, we can give you like a moment to troubleshoot your mic. In the meantime, we can move on to the next question. Our next panel question, Anissa, if you want to share that question.
Okay, so is police misconduct a prevalent issue in your country? How are police officers held accountable for misconduct in your country? Please take it away. Would anyone like to speak?
I'll start. So right here in the Bronx, police misconduct is like a prevalent issue in my country and in my borough. And it's really like a matter of concern, because while officers can be held accountable through like internal affairs, like investigations, body cameras, and like cases, there's definitely like room for like improvement, whereas there's transparency and accountability.
Thank you for your insight to that issue. Would anyone else like to speak?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, my name is Cashmere, but I go by Cash. I'm one of the trauma response managers here at Exodus. This is the building I work in is the Center for Trauma Innovation. So we basically give free therapy and free therapeutic services for the community.
Thank you for the introduction. Would you like to answer the question? Is police misconduct a prevalent issue in your country, and how are police officers held accountable for misconduct in your country?
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. It cut off. I didn't really. You said it's police mixed conduct. I'm on a. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is police misconduct a prevalent issue in your country, and how are police officers held accountable for misconduct in your country?
Oh yes, police misconduct is always in my country. Just the other day, like cop when a kid came out of school, a cop beat the shit out of the kid. Like I just like for no reason. Like and it's just ridiculous.
Would anyone else like to speak?
I'd like to speak on that question if I could. I think police misconduct in my country is an issue more so on the part of the way they treat people, not more on the part of violence. I feel like in the UK, it's more of for example, I've been stopped and searched, and the way like they talk down to you as if you're just like the way they talk down to you, it's not right. Like I get me, I'm 16 years old. I would be seen as a kid, but at the same time you are stopping me. And I feel like you should have a level of respect and like professionalism when you're doing your job if it's to protect and serve the community. And I see it a lot in like friends, family. It's just something that shouldn't be happening in general.
Thank you so much for that. Would anyone else like to answer? Okay. With that, let's move on to our next question. Okay. Do you think the police is adequately addressing concern of police misconduct? Why or why not?
I'd also like to answer that question. Wait, hold on. Me in the UK, I feel like it's at a steady pace. I don't think it's really like a bad like way of them handling misconduct, but at the same time, could really be sped up in terms of how they handle it, like where they handle it. I was at a meeting I think last week, like to tackle like issues about stop and search and just policing in general. And one of the people that was given the presentation said he had a case of police misconduct, and he said it was a 3 years ongoing case, and he still hasn't even gotten close to finishing it. So I feel like if they really put more time and effort, maybe money, research into like how to fix that issue, it'd be a lot better for the community and the country as a whole.
Thank you. Would Cash like to answer? Okay, let's move on to our next question. What does police accountability mean to you? Wilton Force, would you please answer the question?
Yeah, I feel like accountability would be if an officer has been deemed to have handled a situation wrong. I feel like they should go under training, or at least been like, yeah, just more training, or have been fired, or have been put on leave. Just some form of like repercussion. I don't think it's been tackled like as closely or as well as other issues, because in the UK, like a lot of officers are not even from well, in London, a lot of officers are not from London, they're from outside of the borough. So it's like, and they all go through training together. So it's kind of buddy up. And I feel like when you've been working with someone like a friend, it's kind of like, that's my friend. Why would I then fire him? Why would I then put him under training? Why would I then take him out of a job? So I feel like it's more, it seems to be handled way more better. I feel like.
I agree with Elijah because there seems to be like a sense of camaraderie that comes with the police officers, and more often than not, they would not want to like essentially make a case against their own associate. And like often, especially here in New York, when there is an officer that's being held accountable, they're not very transparent with the process. They'll give and make vague statements that about the process, but they will not say anything specific, and they're not making sure that they're engaging with the community enough to make sure that it's appropriately addressed.
Thank you so much. Karen, would you like to answer?
No.
Okay. Well, on to the next question. So,
Yahira, if you could translate the question for Karen.
Sorry, Karen, ¿cree en la policía de veras de para la accountabilidad de la policía, ¿qué significa para ti? ¿Qué piensas que pueden arreglar ese sistema?
Yo creo que para que como ciudadanos empezamos a creer más en la policía, primeramente hace falta que sean ellos capacitados al momento de atender emergencias prioritarias. Creo que también la imagen que tenemos en México de los agentes de policía llega a ser una imagen muy normativa, una imagen muy inquisitora y una imagen también de mucho combate. Entonces, muchas veces no tienes confianza de acercarte porque piensas que van a estar a la defensiva o que probablemente vaya a haber alguna situación en donde no puedas ser sincero con la situación de peligro que estás pasando. Y por supuesto, ¿no? En México hablar de corrupción, desgraciadamente, es un tema que está normalizado y inclusive, ¿no? Cuando llegas a estar en la universidad y te dicen algún sinónimo que tú creas de corrupción, pues muchas veces no se toma en cuenta a los agentes de policía. Entonces, pues trabajar en capacitaciones, trabajar en trabajos estratégicos, anticorrupción, en contra de la impunidad. Muchas gracias.
Awesome. She was saying that in order for there to be accountability and to build trust, that police officers, again, have to really undergo a lot of training and dealing with priorities in regards to certain emergencies. She believes that there's this image that they have in Mexico of police officers. It becomes a very kind of normative image. And it's a very kind of questionable image. It's an image of a lot of combat, a lot of violence. And so many times you don't have that confidence in that police body. And she thinks that to approach it, you really have to then address the corruption, because unfortunately, it's something that is really serious because of all of the dangerous situations that are occurring, and I don't in Mexico. But in Mexico, you're not only talking about corruption, unfortunately, it's a topic that is normalized. And so, there are times when like you might be in the university, and someone can tell you something about the police, and it's synonymous with corruption, because many times those people's accounts those experiences aren't really taken into account. And so it really should be that the police officers are working on getting better training, not only for strategic purposes, but also to work on corruption against impunity for these officers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your insight. Okay, next question. In the UK and in other countries, the police do not carry firearms. Is this an effective strategy to prevent police misconduct while still?
I'm sorry, we're gonna have Kashmir talk first. She raised her hand. Go ahead, Kashmir.
We're having trouble hearing you, Kashmir. We're still unable to hear you. In the meantime, we can let me just introduce one of our other panelists. They're joining us from Street Corner Resources. If you want to say hello, Julian. Okay. Kashmir, are you able to, is your microphone working? I think Street Corners was also having trouble connecting. No, we still can't hear you.
Security downstairs.
Okay, we can. Let's test it one more time, Kashmir, if you can. If not, we can get back to you, Kashmir, while you figure out the what's going on with your microphone. But yeah, I'd like to have Anissa ask one last question before we start accepting questions from the audience. So if anyone wants to ask a question to any of our panelists that we have right now, please submit your messages to CCRB Q&A. That's the thing. Yeah, so you can feel free to send her direct messages with your questions, and then we can ask those questions to our audience. Anissa, do you want to ask the final question?
Okay. So in the UK and other countries, the police do not carry firearms. Is this an effective strategy to prevent police misconduct while still allow the police to carry out their duty? What would you want your country to implement? Kaylee, may you please answer?
Considering the UK's approach of not like arming their police officers can be effective. However, you also have to take into consideration like the specific needs and challenges that a country like faces, because certain countries may struggle more than others when it comes to gun-related laws, especially in the US where gun control is a huge problem. So you have to take into it has to be taken into careful consideration to maintain safety
I can now.
while preventing misconduct.
Forrest, may you please answer?
I just wanted to reiterate, the UK does have a police force with guns. It's just a different unit. We have a firearms unit, but you are right, and most police officers don't have firearms. But I also feel like it's still an issue, because I'll give you an example. A rapper from the UK named Gully, he was arrested for a murder charge, and while he was being arrested by a firearms unit, he was naked at the time, and they wouldn't allow him to get dressed. So I feel like there also needs to be like a level of respect. I don't know if in other countries they'd allow him to get dressed, but in the UK, if a firearms unit tells you to do something, you have to obey it. You can't move in any other way, else they'll just shoot you. I don't know, but I'm assuming they will. But yeah, can't really argue or do anything. You just have to do what they tell you to do. So I feel like that's also a big issue. Can't really reason with them. So yeah.
Thank you. And may the question please be translated for Karen.
Yes. So Karen, la pregunta es que en el the UK, en Inglaterra y otros países, la policía no tienen pistolas. ¿Tú crees que es una estrategia efectiva para prevenir la policía en haciendo cosas malas? Y después, si tú crees que es una estrategia efectiva para prevenir las cosas malas de la policía, a la misma vez, al mismo tiempo permitir que la policía cumpla con su deber. Le gustaría que si a usted le gustaría si tu país implementara esta política que tiene Inglaterra.
Creo que fuera lo ideal, ¿verdad? En precisamente el tratar de llevar políticas públicas en forma de pacificación, creo que es una gran idea en política pública. Sin embargo, la realidad que vivimos en México nos arrebasa en el sentido que muchas veces grupos criminales como lo es el narcotráfico tienen muchísimo mayor ventaja en cuestión de armas. Entonces creo que si bien es cierto, fuera lo ideal que en México los policías dejaran la cuestión de armas, yo creo que sí bajarían bastante los índices de violencia que tienen con la ciudadanía. Sin embargo, la realidad del crimen que existe en México no solamente es un crimen ciudadano, sino que también hay criminales que cuentan, ¿no? con armas muchas veces hasta de mucho mayor calibre que los policías. Entonces creo que mucho más adelante tal vez estuviéramos hablando de esta política pública para México, pero en este momento yo pienso que también sería debilitar la fuerza policial.
Awesome. She thinks in general that it is a great policy idea. However, to carry out this type of public policy, it's ideal. But the reality is that they live in Mexico and they're overwhelmed by many times the sense of with the narcotraficantes, like the groups that are the drug cartels, and a lot of drug trafficking. They have a lot of greater advantage in terms of weapons, so they have a lot more weapons at their disposal. So although she thinks that it would be ideal for the police in Mexico to instill that policy and have these weapons, set aside, she believes that the rates of violence that is experienced within the citizens would significantly decrease. However, the reality is that crime still exists in Mexico. And it's not only crimes between citizens and police, but police and drug traffickers. She also believes that there are a lot of there may be criminals that don't have weapons, but many times a lot of those interactions with the police being armed can really escalate those types of dynamics. So she thinks that much later down the line, it would definitely be something to take up this policy, take it up to the public. In an ideal world, would be it would be great to implement it, but at the moment, it would weaken the police force.
Okay, thank you so much to our panelists for this very insightful, very interesting discussion. I do want to just take some questions from the audience that were submitted. The first question is, so someone said that they are from Uganda and they would like to ask the panelists if there are laws that prohibit police brutality in your country. If so, what does the government do in respective of what does your government do in order to discipline officers who may have engaged in police misconduct? Does anyone want to volunteer to respond first? Oh, Kashmir? Sure. Would you like to unmute? Oh, we can't hear you. We still can't hear you. Okay.
And Karen, I'll just translate it for you. Alguien preguntó si existen leyes que sancionan los agentes de la policía si ellos incurran una mala conducta policial.
Yes.
Kashmir me parece que levantó primero la mano.
Let Kashmir go, because you raised your hand first.
Oh, her mic isn't working, but yeah, if you want to type it in the chat while you fix the audio issue, please feel free. Would any of our other panelists like to, Karen, if you can respond to this question.
En México sí existen leyes que sancionen a los policías, pero les voy a ser muy sincera, realmente no se llevan a cabo. De hecho, les voy a platicar una pequeña anécdota. Yo me presenté con ustedes como abogada feminista porque en mis inicios inicié con marchas, apoyando precisamente a las compañeras feministas de los colectivos. Hace unos años, precisamente aquí de la ciudad donde estoy, había una presidenta municipal que desgraciadamente pues no tenían una perspectiva feminista en ese momento y hubo una marcha en donde las compañeras feministas protestaron de forma pacífica colocando en el Palacio de Gobierno anotaciones, ¿no? Acerca de una noticia de un feminicidio porque habían asesinado a una compañera. Llegaron los agentes de policía por órdenes del director precisamente de policías y se llevaron a las compañeras sin preguntarles qué estaban haciendo. Ellas, como les comento, estaban haciendo uso de una manifestación pacífica, pero se las llevaron.
I'm going to reiterate for them to send it.
Muy bien. Y se llevaron a las compañeras atropellando derechos humanos y muchas de esas compañeras eran menores de edad. Al final del día, después de quejas que se pusieron, logramos remover al director precisamente de los policías, pero fue solamente pues haciendo precisamente utilización de las leyes que se tienen en México para poder sancionar este tipo de conductas. Entonces sí existen, pero difícilmente se llevan a la práctica.
Awesome. She was saying that in Mexico, there do exist some laws that sanction police officers in regards to police misconduct. However, she wanted to share a small kind of story. At the beginning, she introduced herself as like a feminist lawyer because when she would go in Mexico, she participated in marches supporting other feminist colleagues of feminist lawyer groups. A few years ago, there was in the city where she was in, there was a municipal leader who unfortunately did not have or support like the feminist perspective. And at the time, there was a march where the feminist folks and colleagues protested peacefully by placing notes at the respective like municipal palace. But because of news of a woman being murdered, the police officers arrived at the demonstration, and they took away some of her colleagues without asking them what they were doing. And they were, even though they were peacefully demonstrating, they took away her those companions and colleagues, and violated their human rights. And many of those folks that were taken away were minors. At the end of the day, there were complaints that were made to that body that investigates police misconduct, but they managed to remove the director, but the police, but only because of the precise laws that existed in Mexico, they weren't following, so they were able to sanction this type of behavior. So it does exist, but it's difficult to put into practice.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists. If folks have any questions that they want to ask our panelists, please submit them by sending them to CCRB/Q/A, Q&A. We're going to, for the sake of time, we're going to move on to our next activity, and then we can go back to our panel discussion. So Maria, take it away.
Yeah, so this next activity will appear on the right-hand side of your screen. If you are joining us on an iPhone or an Android device, click the three dots on the bottom right-hand side of the WebEx screen and then select the Slido app. It is called Two Truths and a Myth. There are a list of countries, and for each country, there will be a total of 3 statements. 2 factual statements about the country's state of policing/police misconduct, and 1 false statement. The objective of the activity is for you to figure out which of the 3 statements is the false one. So I'm going to give you about 45 seconds after I read all of the statements for the specific country, and we will start with the United States, and then I'll reveal the answer after. So the United States, the first one is 15% of civilians who experience police threat or use of force during legal interventions are injured. The second one is out of 3,000 911 calls that were transferred to Denver's Police Department's STAR program, which allows licensed social workers and mental health aides respond to low-level disturbances and mental health crises, 30% of calls needed to be escalated to police intervention. The third one is during the peaks of the stop and frisk era in New York City, Black and Hispanic people made up for about 50% of New York City's population, but accounted for 84% of the stops. I'll give you a second to answer the question. Okay, time to reveal the myth. So, statement 2 is the myth. None of the calls were actually escalated to police intervention. Okay, let's move on to the next country. So, for France, statement 1 is young men who are perceived to be Black or Arab are 5 times more likely to be stopped for identity checks than the rest of the population. Statement 2 is French Algerian community members of Nanterre explained that police are known to be violent with children as young as 13 years old, which makes children often run when they see police officers. The third statement is only half of France's municipal police officers are sworn agents and carry guns. I'll give you a second to answer.
Let's give a little bit more time for folks to respond.
Okay. For France, statement 1 is the myth. They are actually 20 times more likely. Now let's go to Hong Kong. The first statement is after the police's violent handling of the 2019 anti-government protests, there has been effective police reforms enacted. The second statement is, according to the Hong Kong public opinion polls, 80% of the population supports the idea of an independent commission of inquiry that investigates police misconduct. The third statement is, during the 2019 to 2020 Hong Kong protests, there have been over 1,000 protesters arrested, detained, and brutalized severely as punishment for refusing to comply with police. I'll give you a couple of seconds to answer. So for Hong Kong, statement number 1 is the myth. There has been little police accountability as they defend their use of force as quote unquote appropriate against the quote unquote radical protests. Now for Kenya. Statement 1 is 1 in 3 Kenyans have experienced police abuse or harassment. Statement 2 is the average Kenyan pays 16 bribes per month towards local police. Statement 3 is despite police corruption, many residents reported that they still have faith in relying on police for the safety of their community. I'll give you a couple of seconds.
In the meantime, Maria, if you can just check the chat.
Yeah. Okay, so for Kenya, statement number 3 is the myth. Many residents reported that they rather rely on community members for safety rather than police officers. Now for Nicaragua. The president of Nicaragua has complete control over their police departments. Statement 2 is the government utilizes police to intimidate pro-democratic voices with violent repression against the Nicaraguan people. Statement number 3 is the Nicaragua National Police has one of the lowest men to women ratios in the world. I'll give you a couple of seconds. Okay, so for Nicaragua, statement number 3 is the myth. It has one of the highest men to women ratios in the world. Now let's move on to the UK. Statement number 1 is Black Londoners are 3 times more likely to be stopped than white Londoners. Statement number 2 is government spending on the police has risen by 18% over the years since 2009. And statement number 3 is in England and Wales, individuals from a Black or Black British background were searched at a rate 6.2 times higher than that of those of the white ethnic group.
All right, yes. And then so once everyone responds to this question, we can move on to our second panel.
Okay. For the UK, statement number 2 is the myth. Government spending on the police has dropped by 18% over the years since 2009.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this poll and this activity. I definitely learned a lot about policing in other countries so far from these activities and from hearing from our wonderful panelists. We're now going to begin our second panel, which will be questions about solutions to improving police community relations. I'd like to ask Street Corner Resources to introduce themselves.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. My name is Julian Miles. I'll be representing Street Corner Resources today. And can you just repeat the question for me one more time, please?
Oh, it was just introduce yourself first, and then
Oh,
we'll
okay.
get into the questions after.
That was
Amazing. All right, and we are still joined by Elijah. We're joined by Kashmir. We're joined by Greater Nigeria Initiative and by Karen. Maria, would you like to begin our panel discussion?
So our first question will be, imagine you're a policymaker in your city. What are 3 actionable steps you would suggest changing police towards youth that could go into effect tomorrow? Julian, would you like to start?
sure. One policy I can say off the top of my head is to make sure police officers, like even if it's once a week or once every 2 weeks, they get like mental checkups or things like that, because a lot of times they are burnt out and they do get to their head. And sometimes when they can't take no more, they take it out on innocent civilians that doesn't need to be hurt or in a situation at all.
Okay, thank you for your response. Would anyone else like to go?
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yay! Okay. Can you repeat the question, please? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So the question is, imagine you are a policymaker in your city. What are 3 actionable steps you would suggest changing police towards youth that could go into effect tomorrow?
Towards youth. Okay, so I feel as though if you wanna talk to the youth, don't have your it's hard because cops have to be in uniform, but with the youth, I feel like you shouldn't wear your uniform because a lot of people are traumatized by police. So automatically, when they see the uniform, they don't feel comfortable when a cop is just talking to them. Rather than if they see a regular person, they would feel more comfortable, even though they wouldn't even know behind bars that's a whole cop. That's one. That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you for your response. Would anyone else like to go?
I'll go. One solution I can think about is youth engagement, which is ensuring that police officers receive specialized training for dealing with the youth and learning de-escalation techniques in order to not escalate the situation further in which either party gets harmed, and understanding the psychology behind younger teens and adolescents so that they're able to handle situations with younger people more effectively.
Okay. Thank you for that insightful answer. Would anyone else like to go? Sure. Unmute your mic.
All right, so I was going to re-echo what was earlier said about a compulsory mental evaluation for police officers, because I think it's so important to continue to check if these people are okay upstairs and be sure that all is well, because it's policing at the end of the day, and it takes a whole lot of mental work. And then the second thing I would say is slash the police budget. I think the budgets are quite high at the moment across the world. So slash the police budgets, ensure that they don't have excess cash in hand or excess budgets, and know how to do this in such a way that you are not decapitulating the police from being efficient, but you're also restricting them from having too much access to funds to do as they wish, including defending themselves. Of course, we know in the era of the new Jim Crow, if you're conversant with the new Jim Crow, we have people from police departments hiring some of the best lawyers, paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend the police department in cases where police officers have killed someone or police officers have committed certain atrocities. So we want to be able to slash the budget just to ensure that that's handled.
Okay. Thank you so much for all of those responses for that question. Now let's move on to the next question. What do you see as the biggest obstacle to change? What can we do to overcome some of these obstacles?
Okay, can I? Yeah?
Yeah, you may.
Great. So I'd say first that there are preconceived sentiments that we already have, especially the Black community across the world, in the US and the UK. I believe that as a Nigerian myself, there's so many Nigerians in the US, there's so many Nigerians in the UK, quite a population in the US and in the UK. I think the largest Black population in the US are Nigerians and Ghanaians, and so also in the US and the UK and the US. So there's so many preconceived sentiments, sentiments about Black people, which all started from the new Jim Crow era, looking at people because of the color of their skin and all of that. So we want to ensure, and I think Alexander Michel, comes through for us in that definition, that we have to do something about this preconceived sentiment. So it's a systemic issue. It's systemic racism, basically. So we have to attack it systematically. We have to attack it from the curriculum. We have to attack it from teaching values to both white kids and black kids. We have to attack it from, reinventing ourselves as humans before looking at the color of our skin. So that really is the biggest obstacle: preconceived sentiments, primordial sentiments, the superiority of races. Some races believing they're superior to other races, whereas the only race that is superior is humanity. So that's it.
Yeah. Elijah, thank you for your response. Elijah, would you like to go as well?
Yeah, thank you. In the UK, I feel like wait, what was the question? Hold on. The biggest obstacle would be the fact that most police officers are not even like in London, for example. Most police officers are not from London; they're from other places. And for a new person, a new officer coming into a whole new environment, it's a big change. And I feel like they don't really know how to deal with all that change. Like they grow up in rural towns, so for them to be in big cities surrounded by other races that they've never even seen. Like the last meeting I was at, a police colleague said that he had a new recruit and he's never even seen a black person in his life. And I think that's an issue because when you're going into a new environment, you tend to, I wouldn't say lash out, but you wouldn't really understand what's going on if you've done something wrong. You know what I mean? So getting more people from London or from that area that you're trying to police would be beneficial for the just in general. And just if you are getting from people from outside of London, I feel like more training needs to go in for like how you need to handle certain situations with certain groups. Like, say for instance, the Islamic community. Say an officer has no idea like what to do. Can't really. How do I put it? How do I put it? Can't really. Say for instance, you couldn't really like touch or handle like an Islamic woman the same way you could say a white woman. That is a big issue. Like you can't really deal with certain people the same way you would with someone else because like religious beliefs, I get all people should be handled equally, but certain times it's like a really big issue and it can lead to consequences where the officer doesn't know and they may get even fired or put in jail for something they really didn't know. So that's a part on just the government for like with that issue there.
Yeah. Thank you for your response. KL, will you like to go?
Elaborating on the idea of it being a systemic problem, a lot of the time people are resistant to change and police reform, often not because it's the idea of why change it if it's been around and it's been working for so long. And it's just like there's also skepticism from the community as well when it comes to reforming the police because they don't think it's possible. And the government in the US is doing nothing to prove that it is possible in the first place.
Yeah. Thank you for your response. Okay, so now moving on to our next question. Should a civilian review board of police be implemented in your community/country? If they do exist in your community/country, how effective do you think they are? If you can create a civilian complaint review board in your community, what and how would they investigate police misconduct? Julian, would you like to begin? Okay, that's completely fine.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Can you say that last part of that question again? Because I heard everything and then it kind of like went out.
Yeah, so the last part of the question is if you can create a civilian complaint review board in your community, what and how would they investigate police misconduct?
One way I can say they can try to investigate police conduct is the way how police react to different type of civilians or the youth. depending on certain situations, because I know for some cops, depending on the situation, they can be all calm about it, try to get the youth down, like calm down, not stressed and things like that. But during other times, you have police officers that don't care about the other youth opinion or how they think or anything like that. They just want to go by off of their own opinion and what they know, and then that's when they try to take action. So one way I can say is to investigate on that to see how some police officer portray certain things and how other officers do, because sometimes they will lie and say they portray it some type of way when they're actually out in the streets doing what they have to do, their job, they take it a whole different way.
Yeah, thank you so much for your response. Would anyone else like to go? Kashmir,
I think
Karen. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, it's okay.
so. I think that uh, for a civilian review board to work, it must have significant power to implement its resolutions, because whatever resolutions come forward from the work that they do would, end up in some paper on some desk and would never be implemented. So if, say, we could, for every issue that arises that comes before the complaint board, you can be able to get signatures, 5,000 signatures, and this is going to be the action. 10,000 signatures, and this is going to be the action. So it's going to be people driven, it's going to be people centric, and it's going to give the people some power, a say over what happens in your community.
Okay, thank you so much for that response. Kashmir, would you like to go next? It's a little choppy. Can you repeat what you said so we can see if your mic works? I'm so sorry, but we can't hear you. If you would like, I think we can hear you better now. Would you like to try again? I can't really hear you, so if you would like, can you put your response in the chat and then I'll read it out loud while someone else answers, has another response to another question, if that's okay. Okay. Karen, would you like to go?
Yes.
Yahaira, are you able to translate this question for Karen?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. Okay. So the question is, should a civilian review board of police be implemented in your community/country? If they do exist in your community/country, how effective do you think they are? If you can create a civilian complaint review board in your community, what and how would they investigate police misconduct?
¿Pudieran hacer la traducción, por favor?
Sí, I'm sorry, I was muted. Debería implementar una junta civil de revisión de la policía en su comunidad o país. Si existen en su país o comunidad, yo sé que usted estaba hablando de eso anterior, ¿qué tan efectivos cree que son? Si puede crear una junta civil de revisión de quejas en su comunidad, ¿cómo tú piensas investigar la mala conducta de la policía?
Primeramente, fuera una gran idea, sin embargo, que las personas que intervengan dentro de esta investigación sí tengan mecanismos de seguridad, porque muchas veces lo que pasa cuando intentas precisamente denunciar a un servidor público o en este caso a un servidor agente policial, pues pasa mucho lo que se llama represión. ¿Qué quiere decir eso? Que te persuaden para que desistas de denunciar. Entonces, fortalecer los mecanismos ya existentes de protección de derechos humanos, en donde si tú llegas a estar como parte en una investigación policial, pues también se te protejan tus derechos y, no sé, ¿no? Contar con mecanismos externos, por ejemplo, asilo en caso de que la estructura del gobierno mexicano pues no sea lo suficientemente activa, que es precisamente uno de los mayores problemas que tenemos aquí.
Perfecto. La parte, como comenzaste, mi nota no lo escuché bien. En la primera parte.
Que serían muy buenos mecanismos y que ya existen mecanismos parecidos en México. Sin embargo, que sí sería sumamente importante el fortalecer los mecanismos ya existentes de protección de testigos, en donde si tú eres parte, por ejemplo, de algún tipo de investigación policial, se te protejan tus derechos humanos y en caso de que el Estado mexicano no te resguarde tus derechos humanos, pues puedas tener como mecanismos externos, ya sea oportunidad de asilo o alguna situación en donde se te pueda proteger de forma integral.
Awesome. So she's saying that there are mechanisms that exist in Mexico. However, that those things can be strengthened. And it's extremely important to strengthen those mechanisms in order to protect the civilians. She says that the existing mechanisms, however, with the people that conduct these investigations, there are some mechanisms in place. But what happens at times is that there's a negative reaction to those public servants. And in the cases of police officers, there's a lot of repression that happens. So she says that there are some folks that dissuade you from reporting and participating in the process. And a way of strengthening it is to strengthen already existing mechanisms to protect human rights. And if it were to be a part of the police investigation, that would be great to really ensure that trust and also to ensure that when folks file a complaint, they know that their rights are protected so that they don't have to count on, ideally these external mechanisms in regards to this oversight, and that the structure itself, like within the American government, needs to be more active to really address these bigger problems. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your response. Gracias para tu respuesta.
Real quick, I just wanted to take a moment to welcome Yvette from Zambia. She's was one of our panelists. She just had some connectivity issues, but I'm so glad that you were still able to join us. Would you like to just quickly introduce yourself, and then we can have you join in the discussion? Yvette, are you able to unmute your mic? Okay, looks like she may be still having technical issues. We can move on to the next question until she's ready to go.
Okay, great. So the next question is, what recommendations would you give your local police force to improve police oversight? So KL or Elijah, would one of you like to start?
I'll start. To improve police oversight, probably enhance training, which is like more like establishing, going further into like ethics, morals, and like I mentioned this previously, but also like de-escalation tactics and like being sensitive to people's cultures.
Okay, thank you. Elijah, would you like to go next?
No, yeah, I just want to add on to what they said. I feel like more training also would be beneficial because I know in the UK, most people like around my age, like most people in general, don't really like the police, and anytime they see a police officer, if they're getting stopped or just them talking to them, it's always hostility and almost harassment at the same time, like from both parts in certain cases. Um, so I feel like um, most police officers, when they encounter like a teenager, and the teenagers, I'd say being rude or aggressive to them, like verbally, in certain cases, like they don't even try and de-escalate the situation at all. It's more like it's just back and forth from both, and I feel like there just needs to be a lot more professionalism when it comes on their part. Your job is to protect and serve, and I feel like there just needs to be more training in that area, even weekly, monthly, yearly, just more.
Okay, thank you so much. So I see that Yvette just got back on. Would you like to introduce yourself quickly and then I'll restate the question?
Yes, thank you. Hi everyone.
Hi.
I'm Suilanji and I'm representing Zambia. Yes, thank you. Kindly restate the question.
Okay, so our question is, what recommendations would you give to your local police force to improve police oversight?
I feel like one or a few recommendations that I can give to the police force to improve police oversight is to take complaints from citizens about the police seriously. Because from what I have noticed, when complaints are filed about unfair treatment from the police, it's never really taken that seriously. You know, we have complaint boards, we have review boards and everything, but once the complaint is filed, it's not taken too serious. So I think citizens' complaints being taken seriously can really improve something. Another thing is to investigate seriously in matters to do with the infringement of human rights when the police are responsible. For example, somewhere around 2021 or 2022, there was some shooting that took place when the C5, a unit of our police here in Zambia, were pursuing a murderer and unfortunately gunned down a teenage girl on her way from school. So I feel like such matters must be investigated more seriously in order to hold the police accountable for their actions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So since you did miss out on a couple of questions, I would also like to ask you another question. What do you see as the biggest obstacle to change, and what can we do to overcome some of these obstacles?
One of the biggest obstacles to change, especially here, is corruption in the law enforcement. So, I've borne witness to it myself, where at some point we were coming home from school, me and my siblings, and the cops stopped us by the side of the road, and they were, I don't know what exactly they were asking the driver who was driving us home, but just next to us, there was another man who was stopped, and the police asked for money so that he could go without being penalized for the offense that he committed. So this isn't the first time that's happening. It's happened in so many other places and in so many other ways. So I feel like there should be serious action taken into corruption when it comes to law enforcement.
Thank you for sharing your experience. Let's move on to the last question. So, how should the police force and the community engage with one another? Julian, would you like to begin?
Yeah, let's start with this one. One main good thing to for police to engage with youth, one is to have like little like event days where everybody comes out together. There's like board games you can play, basketball, things that youth have interest that the police also does, because that is another way to talk to people without like trying to feel offended or some type of way, or however somebody may take it. Like certain events that can help other people.
Okay, thank you so much. Kashmir, would you like to try again?
Most of the time when there is events, you actually get to know about it. Yeah.
Kashmir, if you're still having connectivity issues, you can type in the chat if you would like. Yvette, since you did miss the first two questions, I'm gonna give you this opportunity to answer the question if you would like.
Thank you very much. I think one way or a few ways the police can engage with the community is by discerning respect from fear, because I feel like the police are making people fear rather than respect them. So they can engage in ways to make the community trust them in order to enforce respect. For example, instead of promote or encouraging mob justice, when a thief or someone is being pursued or something, instead of being aggressive and everything and using excessive force, they can instead act appropriately and not infringe the rights of the person, because nobody is guilty until proven so. They can engage in certain activities such as educating youths about the police force and what it does in order to create an interest in youths, so that maybe they can be a police force that works better with the community off of the education that they have gained. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Would the representative from the Greater Nigeria Initiative like to respond to this question?
Hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, as I really want to echo what Yvette said, because I believe that we need to reintroduce the whole process of policing to young people. We need to be sure that police officers are not out there disguised as murderers and killers and trying to end people because of the color of their skin. We need to be sure that police is truly there to police, to help, to guide, and not, I would say this with a sense of consciousness of what's going on around the world. And of course, we looked at, when we were looking at the little quiz we had about Black people in London and Black people in the US, we know there's an existential problem. So we should not shy away from the problem. We should not run away from the problem. We should not deny the problem, but we should look for conversation spaces on how to discuss the problems and seek solutions. And you do that by conversations. You do not do that by trying to say, oh no, all lives matter. We already know that all lives matter, but we're saying Black lives matter at the moment because we understand that this is a target. So do not try to deflect from the issue. So we want the spotlight on the issues. And that's how to really solve the problem, by facing it head on. Black lives do matter. All lives eventually matter, but at the moment, Black lives are endangered, so Black lives do matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that response. Elijah, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I don't mind. Let me just read the question. I feel like, oh no, yeah. I feel like there should be a lot more like interactiveness with like the community. Because me myself, I'd say when I see a police officer trying to talk to me, I kind of get fidgety because I do automatically assume that it's they're trying to find something like against me. Because I wouldn't say in most cases, but in most cases it is that. For what I've seen from like friends and family, but it needs to change. I feel like what we could do, maybe like local football games, we could have police there, like even in the stands cheering on, or just have I think there was even like they used to do meet your local police officer. It was like they put it in the newspaper. I feel like they could bring back that. It was like just a picture of the police officer, like he would patrol your area, about him, where he's from, what he likes, his hobbies, like just something to get more in touch, make the police officer feel like a human more than just some guy that's trying to arrest you or some guy that's trying to do you harm. So yeah, I feel like that's a way we could actually move forward with like that topic.
Yeah, I completely agree. Karen, would you like to go next?
Por el momento, no.
Okay, está bien. KL, would you like to respond to this question?
Yeah, sure. I agree with everyone with the idea of a community, like creating community, because as Elijah mentioned, there was a relationship between the community and the police officers back then. However, they failed to continue and represent that relationship well into current times. And I feel like it's like allowing for an open dialogue and like actual feedback from the community and where people can like voice concerns and provide input and where the officers can affirm people of their concerns would be one of the best ideas to like start like establishing a relationship properly.
Thank you for that response. Kashmir, would you like to go next? If not, you can always type your response in the chat if you're having connectivity issues, and we could read it out after the questions are being asked. But now I would like to end our panel discussion here to see if any members in the audience have any questions for you.
So, yes, we are now taking questions from the audience. I know a few people had questions that they want to share, that they wanted to ask. Yeah, good.
So the first question is from Kevin. He is a representative from Assembly Member Udelka Tapia. I'm 25 years old and legislative director for an elected official in New York State. Thank you to everyone who is a part of this. I feel humbled being surrounded by young community leaders. You are an inspiration, not just to me, but all good people working to find public solutions. My question is, what public policies would you like to see implemented in New York State if you are from here or nationwide regarding these issues? The panelists, youth, and anyone from the panelists can speak.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. One policy, not really much, it's not really a policy, but something I would like to see is like development of maybe like race conscious curriculum. So like with a lot of things, like police, well, the U.S. I'm not so sure about other countries, but it was founded on racism, and that still stands today. And there's a lot of unlearning to do because it was like a Band-Aid was put on the wound instead of, like thorough education and like on racism on learning. I feel like there needs to be, maybe some curriculum or some training officers go through where, they discuss like, just because someone's like this color, they're not gonna hurt you or they're not a threat. And I think that, more officers would be aware of these things because a lot of them actually don't grow up in like areas with a lot of these people. A lot of them are just used to seeing people who look like them. So I think, that exposure will help, reduce like police brutality or at least, make people, officers more
I
aware.
I totally agree. Thank you, Anissa. The next question is from Akawasi. What are some organizations in the UK that we can connect with here to partner on initiatives related to gun violence? Sorry. I'm sorry. Disregard that. Can all the panelists answer the question I said before? What public policies would you like to see implemented in New York State if you are from here or nationwide regarding these issues? So what public policies would you like to see change in the future? Oh, okay. So can I get Elijah to speak?
So for the public policy question,
Yes.
um, I'd say just like health screening when it comes to police officers and their mental states, because I forgot who said it, but like they said, like police officers do get burnt out in certain situations because I get their job is stressful. Sometimes you do need to take breaks. It's a very tense time, like when they're out on patrols or just life in general, because there is a lot of hate and stigma towards them. So just checking up on them to see how they're doing and making sure that they're in the right mental state to actually go out on patrol, I thought would actually be better, like a really big impact. So
That's a great, that's a great answer. I appreciate that. What about KL?
Well, I do have no knowledge of organizations in the UK. I can answer the previous question. For policies that I would implement, I would probably implement, like, I've said this before as well, de-escalation training, with like mandated de-escalation training so that they can minimize the force they use while trying to arrest or put a person in a police car. And also like the banning of like chokeholds and strangleholds, which can injure the party and leave their neck injured.
Mm, great answer so far. Can we get Karen? I see your hand up.
Voy a responder la pregunta también de las políticas públicas que pudiéramos implementar al futuro y pues vamos a hablar sobre todo sobre la perspectiva de género, que es que los agentes de policía entiendan el contexto sociocultural de las víctimas de violencia. Fíjense que me tocó trabajar en fiscalía y trabajábamos mucho de la mano precisamente con los departamentos de policiales. Entonces nos llegaba a pasar que en muchas ocasiones los agentes de policía en violencia familiar no solamente se llevaran al agresor, sino que se llevaran también a los niños, ¿no? Dentro de las patrullas, creando con ello pues también traumas, ¿no? Específicamente en las infancias. Entonces, pues sí, hablaríamos de trabajos estratégicos que estén en constante capacitación los agentes de policía y que entiendan que las personas pues vivimos en interseccionalidades, ¿no? Precisamente, hablar de perspectiva de género, hablar del respeto a las garantías y los derechos humanos y por supuesto también al respeto de la identidad, ¿no? Como en el caso de las personas LGTBQI más.
Awesome. Thank you. In response to what policies can be changed, she believes that there should be some additional sociocultural context for the victims of violence, so improving that. And then she noted that in her previous work at prosecutor's office, she worked hand in hand with police departments and helping that. But what happened on many occasions is that the police officers that were there in regards to any kind of domestic violence issues, took away the aggressor in that domestic violence situation, but they also took away the children, and not just and took away the children, and that in and of itself created a lot of trauma with those with the youth. So not specifically just in that, childhood, but you can obviously see that throughout. So yeah, she thinks that a lot of the strategic work that could happen, that the police officers can, a lot of the strategic policies that can occur with police officers is that in really improving the training, and then especially including that it is a constant training, so that they understand the people that they're interacting with. They're also their intersectionalities, not only just from a gender perspective, but from all perspectives, so that they can guarantee their human rights, and also treat them with respect for their identity.
Thank you, Karen. That was a very great explanation. Muchas gracias. And Yvette, can you please answer this question? What public policies would you like to see implemented? You're not from New York State, but what about in Zambia? What public policies would you like to see changed or implemented there?
I think one policy I would really love to see changed or implemented is a citizen review board. I think I mentioned this a bit before. We do have a citizen review board, but it's not quite taken too seriously. Mostly because the police are not respected. They're feared rather than respected. So there's not much openness in citizens. There's not much transparency from citizens. They don't open up about much of their complaints. So I feel like maybe the police can lower down on the violence and the brutality that they induce on citizens, so that there can be more openness from citizens and a citizen review board can be taken more seriously. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That definitely is a great answer. And then for our UK folks, what are some organizations in the UK? What are some organizations in the UK that we can connect with here to partner on initiatives related to gun violence?
Before we go into that question, I'd like to have Julian respond. I see that his hand is raised.
Thank you. One thing I can say that they should enforce with the policies if they don't have it already, is to keep the body cams on when they're on duty at all times, just because of the fact that anything could happen, and most of the time, knowing that police officer, like how they move with certain things, they would cut it off because they know if that certain footage was to get out, it could alter and create a lot of problems for different reasons why. And that's one of the main reasons why a lot of people pull their phone out and start recording it, things like that. One, because 9 chances out of 10, the body cam is off. And two, they don't trust what the police officer is going to do just because of background history of other things. So I say they should really implement having body cams on all the time while they're on duty.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm sorry I missed your hand. I agree as well. And we'll go on to our next question. What are some organizations in the UK that we can connect with here to partner on initiatives related to gun violence?
Me personally, I don't know any organizations that do like tackle gun violence in the UK, but the company I work for, YGA and YG, if you wanted to, I think you can. Yeah, you can. We don't specifically target gun violence, but we do help in terms of stop and search and just police in general. So if you wanted to get in contact, you can.
Yes, please, if you can put your information in the chat so that way us here in the US and all over can partner with YG, that will be very appreciated. So thank you, Elijah. On my end, there is no more questions.
We have We have a couple of people with their hands raised that have questions for our panel. We're just going to unmute Jabril Sulama. Jabril? I don't know if
Jabril, you should be able to speak now.
Hi, I'm Jabril. This is my first time on this webinar. I don't really have much knowledge on police brutality or gun control, but what I do know is I have witnessed police brutality. I have witnessed it with my own eyes, especially during COVID and during the death of George Floyd, where there was this unfair use on gun control. And I would say race does play a big role in it. But at the same time, there's other things we need to be aware of.
All right, thank you so much for sharing those thoughts. I want to thank all of our panelists. That was such an amazing conversation, both panel discussions. I certainly learned so much. I thought this was such an amazing discussion. I thank you all so much for coming out here and participating. And thank you to our YAC that was able to participate with us today and help us with this event. I wanted to hand it over to our chair of our board, Arva Rice, to share some remarks.
Yeah, but looks like the audio might be
Hey, Arva, if you next to the mute button, there should be a down arrow. Just ensure that that is use system settings for the microphone.
She's still muted.
Oh, we still can't hear you. The yeah, we unfortunately we still cannot hear you. Really quickly, while we while we troubleshoot that, I just wanted to also mention that our panelist from the Greater Nigeria Initiative did say in the chat that he would suggest a policy to ban discriminative profiling based racial religious risk predictive assessments. Just want to make sure that folks got that response. But yes, Arba, are you able to share remarks?
Hi Marwa, I'm on the phone with Arva. I think we figured it out. I might just put her on speaker and do it that way.
Okay.
I think we can hear you now.
So Arva, yeah, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon. And thank you so much for joining us for the 2023 Speak Up, Speak Out International Youth Summit. My name is Arthur Wright, and I'm the interim chair of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. As mentioned before, the CCRB is an all-civilian agency that is completely independent from the NYPD. Our job is to investigate when civilians believe they have experienced police misconduct. People should not have to worry about being late to work because officers are stopping them due to their zip code or the color of their skin. We want New Yorkers to know that the CCRB is here to hold officers accountable and root out misconduct. Thank you for joining us today, young people around the world, on the problem you see with policing, but just as importantly, on the solution you come up with to fix those problems. Thank you for sharing your experience and ideas on how to improve our systems globally. I want to congratulate this incredible group of young New Yorkers who are responsible for putting this together. The YAC is an impressive group of young people who are passionate about improving safety and policing in New York City. It is not an easy feat to gather so many diverse and valuable perspectives from all over the world to shed the light on the importance of policing. For anyone in the audience who is interested in joining the Youth Advisory Council, applications for next year's YAC open today. And we welcome all viewers between the ages of 10 to 18 to apply. Thank you again to all who have joined and participated in the evening's event. We hope to see you again next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Rice. Before we go, I wanted to have our Youth Advisory Council member Layla Guzman Griffin to Layla to share her to share some final remarks before we end.
Thank you so much for all attending this year's annual youth summit. The conversations that we had were all super intriguing, and I'm certain that we all learned something by hearing the testimony and responses of our panelists. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for their involvement, but also the work that you guys put into it. And also just to quickly mention that applicants for the next year of the YAC are open. So any 10 to 18-year-olds living in New York can apply. None of us can change the world in a singular day, but educating ourselves, we can put ourselves in a strong position to make changes in our communities. So thank you all so much for attending. And if you know anybody who can join the YAC, let them know about it.
Thank you so much, Layla. All right, thank you all for participating and joining us today. And then once again, thank you so much to our amazing panelists. We really learned a lot today. Have a wonderful rest of your day and see you next time. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
And that's the